Hello, everybody, and welcome to another interview with the Gene Keys Guides community. My name is Matthew Ashdown, also a Gene Keys Guide, and I'm excited to have with me here today good friend, co-collaborator, and Gene Keys Guide manager, Jesse Chesnutt. And welcome, Jesse.
Hi, Matthew. Pleasure to be here. Hello, everyone. Um, yeah, really nice to join you today. Looking forward to our contemplations.
Yeah, we're going to keep it in check because sometimes Jesse and I get together and it could be 2 hours later, but we want to keep it focused and drawn down for today. So yeah, Jesse is somebody I've met about 2 years ago in the community. Many of you will recognize him and know him through his work on Clubhouse, where he hosts a number of Gene Keys community calls there. He's fresh off a call actually as I interview him today, so he's busy on that in that area. And he's also playing a really important role within the Gene Keys Guides community. He's helped herding us all together. And I know he's got a number of events that he's working towards supporting. And I think really we want to kick it off with one of the ones that I know many of the people in the Gene Keys community are really excited about. And that is this upcoming event with Richard Rudd, which just happens to be in Jesse's neighborhood. And so Jesse has assumed a role where he's kind of gathering herds of Gene Key people all together. And I understand, Jesse, as well, that there's some other events that you've got planned on your own personal time and that also might be of interest to some of the folks here, especially those who are guides as well. So I'd love to hear what's been happening. I want to hear the behind the scenes. What's been happening as we build towards this event at the beginning of May where Richard lands on terra firma in the US.
Thanks, Matthew. Yeah, it's exciting. Kind of happened circumstance that Richard is going to be in Colorado to film with Gaia TV. And as part of that, since he's already in town, he had the idea, well, why don't we create a one-day event? And it's a pretty simple idea that has quickly fractaled into this whole large community kind of gathering. And the original thought was to, host 300 people and, to just have this one day event. And then as it started expanding, we realized, well, the best venue has more seats than that. And so we're doing it at this beautiful Boulder Theater, which is downtown Boulder. And it's a really amazing concert hall and venue that can hold 850 people. And so all of a sudden, it just naturally the possibilities started expanding. And really looking forward to it. It's going to be an all-day adventure from 9 till 6 or 7, I think. We'll have some breaks in there for food and stretching and some experiences, but it's called Into the Mystic, and it's really a journey into the mystical aspects of the Gene Keys transmission, and really an opportunity for Richard to have his beautiful transmissions and for us to receive them, but also it's really powerful for community building. Many of the people in the Gene Keys community, if they've, like me, the first time I entered into the community was online, and I wasn't able to have any in-person experience. And so it was during the first deep dive in 2020, and it's I've come to know so many people through Zoom and over Clubhouse, and really feel like very intimate with many people, really feel this kindred spirit and this connection. We've shared our hearts and shared tears and shared wisdom and shared struggle. And so I'm really looking forward to meeting in person and to all of the opportunities there, being able to meet Richard, meet Elijah, meet Rosie Aronston, many of the Gene Keys Team 64, but also the guides community, the ambassadors community, and the general community as well. There's just so many beautiful hearts that are part of that are drawn by the magnetism of the transmission. And so I'm just really looking forward to this one day event, this really beautiful extended event and time to gather in person. And as part of that, I realized, like, well, there's going to be a whole lot of people that want to meet each other and want to make a whole weekend out of it. and it's a very busy weekend in Boulder. And so there's no hotel reservations in Boulder, and it's during graduation, and all of the restaurants are full, and it's very difficult to get food. And so I'm hosting several events with Gene Keys, but as my own LLC called Sacred Presence. And we are renting out a ballroom that fits about 350 people, and we're catering a few different events to really allow the community to come together, to allow everyone to meet each other and to meet Richard and Team 64. And it's quite a daunting task, but it's really exciting as well. I'm having to invest quite a bit of money up front in order to do this. So it's a little bit like risky and daunting, but for me, it's this great opportunity to really walk the talk, to be an entrepreneur, to be a guide, to be in service, to create a container for synarchy and community and communion to come together. And so it has plenty of challenges, and I'm very busy organizing these things, but it really does feel beautiful to be in service. And so the first event will be a guides brunch that's open to guides and ambassadors in Team 64. And it's kind of this idea to get the deeply committed community together and to have an experience together. And then there's several afternoon events where Momo, who's another ambassador and guide, is going to be leading some outdoor events. And we're going to have some workshops in the space in the ballroom, but then we'll have like an open, much larger community event that's open to 350 people, called a Mystic Meet and Greet or the Mystic Happy Hour. And having a place where the community can really gather and break the ice and get to know each other before the event, and really making it feel a little bit more like family and community. And so there'll be some Gene Keys transmissions, there'll be some, Gene Keys experiences, but also just a time to really meet each other and kind of soak each other up is really my intention there. And so looking forward to that. The last piece I'll say is that um, Gene Keys just redesigned all of their books for Gene Keys Publishing. And so part of this is I'm working with Gene Keys to wholesale books and to bring them in person there so that perhaps Richard can sign them, no promises, but people can see the new books and feel them and get access to them before they're released in, I think, June or July. And so that's another aspect that's I'm really excited about. I'm such a book nerd. Obviously have such love. I'm a bibliophile, they say. And so being able to, again, be in service, to use some financial risk to purchase and bring these here, and some logistics coordination, but to really offer this wisdom in their first chance to people to be able to to access this. It just feels like such an honor to serve, and exciting, but also daunting too. So.
That's so cool. I've been watching your rise through all of this and just your commitment to it over the last few years. And just really, I really appreciate it too. And I know many in the community are really appreciating all the work that you're putting in. And I think it will be really good when we get there. And you'll realize after all this time that these people aren't just pixels on a screen or artificial intelligence. They are actual real human beings with flesh and blood. You can hug them, you can, relate to them and get to know them. And so I think that's really exciting. We've got the Into the Mystic event with Richard Rudd. And this is going to be something that I think people listening here is like, well, is this going to be appropriate for me and brand new to this? And you've got the guides events, but this Into the Mystic, this is Richard in his natural state of transmission. And from my experience of that, that touches everybody, wherever you are, beginner, advanced, whatever, wherever you are on this journey. And advanced is the wrong word, just further along the journey. So is that would that be fair to say?
Yeah, there'll be new things for the most advanced students that come right from Richard's heart, and there will be so much to just soak up from Richard for all beginners. I think he wrote, all that's necessary is an open heart and an open mind, and that all levels are will get much from this experience. That's really part of his magic. You know, that he obviously has a lot of wisdom to share, and definitely more facts and beautiful sentences and amazing concepts than you could ever hope to catch. But there's something in the way that he transmits the sound frequency and transmits just the mystical wisdom right into a very approachable, very understandable space that just for me, it lands right in my heart. It takes my mind and it just allows my mind to relax and just enjoy the beauty of it. It makes me really aware of that belly and those shadows and softening to them and really opening to those higher states naturally. So yeah, really all ages, I guess is one way of saying it, but it is an 18 plus event, but you know, all walks of life, all levels of depth into the transmission. I'm sure there will be some brand new people there, especially who live close, but there's people traveling from all over the world in order to be part of this. And so, yeah, it's really exciting. And it just kind of fell to me. They first were like, "Oh, Jesse, you live in Boulder. Do you think you can pull some things together?" And I kind of have some experience in production. And so I'm fully producing the event and working with the amazing team at the Boulder Theater, which is really great. They have like just pros on every level taking care of all these things. We are hiring a video crew, and so we'll have 3 or 4 cameras filming a live stream, and then we'll be sending that, and there will be an ability to purchase a ticket for a live stream that will give you live access in the moment, but also infinite replays. So, you know, those that can't fly to Colorado and do the rental car in the hotel, and I totally understand it's a lot. There's a live stream option that's coming too, and so yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I wonder if they'll let me into the country. The so there's the live stream, which I love, that people can access that, and then there's still tickets available for the in-person event. That's true, right?
Yeah, there are tickets are available now. There's about 400 tickets available, and there's still actually the discounted tickets. There was a little glitch in the ticketing company last week, and so we lost access to the discounted tickets, but it's back up and running. So there's still about 50 tickets left at the discounted rate. If anyone's interested, it's genekeys/mystic, genekeys.com/mystic. All the information's there. But yeah, so there's still space, there's still great seats, and yeah, that's all I'll push for right now. But really excited
It's not
for
pushing. I don't think
all of
you're pushing anything. I think you're just
it.
exciting people. I think the enthusiasm is infectious. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can feel your excitement for this and just how much you're getting to bring to it. I got to ask, you've got this ballroom that you're renting out, and I know you as a bit of a music man. Are they going to be getting a taste of some of your music magic?
Well, I sure would love that. Unfortunately, the ballroom, like there's a regular dance group that meets, it's like the Disco Divas or something. They meet every Saturday night for, they've got it rented out for a year. So unfortunately, the Mystic Happy Hour has to end and we have to be out of there by 6. I tried to bribe them, not bribe them, but ask them if we could go later, and they've had it rented forever. And so unfortunately, we will be closing and have to leave at 6. Otherwise, yeah, I was going to DJ and do a little stuff. Entheo lives in Boulder now, and he's going to be performing some of his music, both at the event as well as at the happy hour. And Jerry's going to be in town, Jerry Littlejohn, who makes the 64 flutes and has such a beautiful way of transmitting the hexagrams and the keys through sound. She's agreed to play. So there's certainly going to be some music. I may play like a few songs that I've written here and there, but I think I'll leave the stage for Enthio. I'll have my hands full. But he's going to be playing quite a bit more during the large event at Boulder Theater. And so, yeah, we're excited and grateful to have him there for sure.
Oh man, it's exciting. And I love how you're taking this, overseeing this whole thing and giving such a podium for others. Like you say, Jerry with her beautiful flute music and Entheo. So I think that's going to be incredible. And So for anybody who's watching and is interested, we've got the link below. So genekeys.com/mystic. You can check that out. You can see if there's still tickets available at discount price. You can get one of the other tickets and you can join them all in Colorado. It's going to be a blast. And we'll probably come back to this during this exploration today. But it's funny because what comes alive for me is that I know that Jesse carries the third gene key in his chart, the third gene key moving from chaos, which I'm sure he's encountering through this process, innovation, which is his playful approach to all of this, and the innocence, which is the city frequency of this gene key. And so, and they talk about this as difficulty at the beginning in the I Ching. And Jesse's somebody who's deeply infused in the wisdom of the I Ching. But I'd love to hear from you. I'm sure there's other people who are sitting here going, oh, yeah, I've got this third gene key. Now, okay, what does this mean for you, Jesse, as you're encountering all of this, as you're doing so much for the gene keys? Is it pure chaos on a daily basis? By the way, I know many of you know that when Jesse comes and does a clubhouse call, he doesn't come alone. He usually has his young daughter Maya in tow. Who knows? Maybe she'll make an appearance today. But you're juggling so much. Like, is it chaos? Is it innovation? Where do you sit in that frequency band?
Thanks. Yeah, well, chaos exists and it's everywhere, especially at the beginning, right? So, yeah, there's been a lot of juggling and there continues to be. And I hold this key in my SQ, right at the heart of the chart. The bullseye for me is this beautiful age of innocence. And when many people speak about the SQ, they speak about the innocence of the child. And the third gene key really embodies so much of that, and so it has a really sweet spot in my heart. But I also have the third gene key as my core wound and my vocation. And so, which is one sphere, the end of the Venus sequence and the beginning of the Pearl sequence. And so I have this double whammy of this key that really is just so deeply ingrained into who I am and how I am, why I am and what I am. And so, yeah, I have learned to develop chaos into cosmos. Really, this is the keynote that Richard talks about. And it's finding, like, oftentimes when we just see chaos, we're so zoomed in that all we're seeing is like the little fractal patterns. And it takes like zooming out and seeing the larger picture when you realize, oh, that's just one little rivulet over here. The whole thing is this beautiful organism. It's breathing in and breathing out. It's expanding on one side and contracting on another. But when it contracts and you're focused in that contracted spot, it can be so challenging and you can feel totally out of control. And, you know, I have this in the third line in the SQ. And so it's very much about, chaos in the third line is is pretty wild. The third line is just totally adaptive, very playful in itself, but it makes a lot of mistakes. It learns through error. It learns through feedback and very much stumbling around, and the humor and the universal love to lighten the weight of that, um, those wounds. But it's interesting because I also hold it in the fifth line in my core wound. And so it's really interesting to note that the keynote in the vocation is management. And when we were going through the Pearl retreat last 2 years ago or something like that, I was like, management, huh? I don't know. I guess I could manage a team, but that doesn't really seem like it's I haven't had that experience in this lifetime. No one's ever hired me to be the manager and to manage a team. And yet I'm recognizing that I'm really well suited at managing a team in synarchy, of allowing for each individual's natural space to come and holding a large space for many voices to be heard in. And I don't want to micromanage, which in a corporate system is just part of the thing. And it's also, taking commands from above and sending them down through the hierarchy. But what's so beautiful about this Gene Keys transmission and about guides and Gene Keys Limited is like there's really this opportunity to empower people to really activate their genius, to really unleash their gifts into the world. And so in when that's the capacity, I feel like a really good opportunity to manage in a way that isn't, embodying the hierarchy of the old way, but really is setting a stage for many to shine, really in service to the whole. And it's how I've lived a lot of my life, after the teenage years, which were pretty selfish and stumbling through the third line failure and all of the humility and all of the things that come with that. But really taking to heart that service to the whole, and that collectively, all of our individual things could be seen as chaos. But when we allow the synarchy and the communion and this service to the whole, it becomes a greater organism than any one person could be. And so to me, it's just such a beautiful opportunity to really embody these. And so innovation is just something that I love, and I never want to do something the same way twice. As a musician and a DJ, I never played the same set ever once the same. I love, even when I transmit something or speak something, I like to move through it in a different way. And so there's just something creative about innovation that I really love, looking at things from many different angles, finding new pathways through knowledge and wisdom. But the thing that really has transformed my whole being in many ways is this innocence. And this innocence just brings such lightness, such freedom, such joy and peace. All it brings to me all of those things. And I can think about a ton of things, and I can take on a bunch of responsibilities, have a bunch of weight and stress, and then this innocence just allows for all of that weight to just let down, and just to play with it, and to really bring that purity from my own spirit to bear, and to let that innocent spark lead. And I think that just naturally is infectious, and it spreads to others, and it really is in many ways my guiding light, and what is leading me forth. So thanks.
Very cool, and I loved it when you went into your innocence, your whole lighting changed. It's like the Zoom lighting. It just said, there it is, the purity, the innocence. I love it, and I love what you were reflecting on there. It's just I can really even see I'm receiving your transmission of the third gene key in that with that line 5, because I'm also a line 5, so I get excited about this, and it's like, you know this management, it's this different, it's a new kind of management, it's a new kind of consciousness that you're, like you said, the synarchy, the working together, the bringing out the best, empowering one another. And I could see how, like you said, in the old hierarchical ways, that third gene key could react to that chaos. It could clamp down, it could get controlling and micromanaging. But this way, just opening up through this innovation and these new ways and this experimentation. And as you're talking, it's also, and perhaps this is where the music and the harmony of the spheres, the programming partner of the 50th gene key, really playing into what you're sharing there. And something that I've known you for, and I think a lot of people were first introduced to you for, was your journey through the I Ching that you brought. The keys of the I Ching really spoke to many people, and it started out as simply posting on Facebook, and it resonated with a number of people. I think even Richard really loved what you were writing. And to me, that's like, oh, well, this is somebody who sees the greater harmony, the greater cosmic order behind everything. And so I love hearing it at this practical level. This to me is the embodied mystic that you represent and Richard represents. It's like you can work on the practical and deal the details and the management in that way. And there's also this cosmic intrigue and mysticism to everything that you do. And so I'm just wondering if there's, what brought you, what drew you to the I Ching? I'm guessing that came before the Gene Keys ever came into your life. Would that be true?
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. That was really beautiful. Nice to receive. So th thanks for that. And yeah, the I Ching came to me when I was 18 years old, 19 years old, maybe back in 1999 in a whole other millennia. And it came very mystically, it came very impactfully. Um, I don't think I have a copy of it right here. It's upstairs in my other library, my daily library. That is a very simple transmission. It's by Brian Brown Walker. And it's a very elegant, very simple and beautiful transmission. And he actually lived in Boulder, Colorado, which is oddly enough. I wasn't here at the time. Long story medium. I It encountered me at a certain time through a girlfriend, and she was like, "Someone told me about this. You got to check this out." And you hold these three coins and you put your energy and your intention into these three coins, and then you cast it 6 times and it builds this hexagram. And this is there's 64 different potentialities of these hexagrams, which the ancient Chinese believed would explain everything in the universe, all the motion and movement of the universe, which just seems like such a mystical and crazy thing to say. Well, it turns out 4,000 years later, that we decode the secret to life and DNA, and there's 64 different letters in the alphabet of DNA. And so all living things across the universe are described in these 64 different fundamental energies. And so this is really where the I Ching has survived for 4,000, 5,000 years. We actually don't know when it began. It kind of enters through the mists of time through prehistory. Um, but and it's also very modern with the way that DNA really acts and enacts, and so much knowledge still to be unlocked with really mastering the DNA. But also it has this great transmission around psychology, around us, how we relate to the world and how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to everyone and everything. And so the Gene Keys is so beautiful because it's a culmination of many different streams. Astrology and I Ching were brought together through human design, and some of the chakras and body systems. And the Gene Keys grew out of that system. But Richard is such a powerful mystic, and he weaves in all of these ancient mystery traditions and the Gnostic Christians and Hermes Trismegistus and the alchemists and Hermetic lineage, much of the Buddhic wisdom from the Buddhist path, and many of these things, and then this embodiment of the goddess. This great transmission of the divine feminine and how it moves with the divine masculine. And anyway, how these all come together has just been, it calls to many, and I think that that's such a beautiful thing for the Gene Keys. But my entryway came through studying the I Ching for about 23 or 24 years now. Um, and so when I first heard of the Gene Keys, it was like a modern, updated version of the I Ching. And I lit up, and then he said, but it's connected to astrology, and you have this chart, and it really piqued my interest. And so I bought the book, and I went through, um, the first sequence. I bought the Genius book, and then the Love book, and then the Prosperity book, and I really just went through it by myself. And I'll never forget the first time I cracked the book and read the fourth Gene Key, which is my life's work, and where many begin is in their sphere of their life's work. And I got chills, and it was kind of spooky. I had to close the book a couple times and be like, how is this so prevalent to who I am and how I am, my secret shadows that I harbor, the things I never want to look at, and like the secret, you know, gifts that like I wish I was living on a day-to-day basis, but I hold deep into the caverns of my heart. And then the city, these like secret dreams that have come to me in my most mystical visions, and here this person, this book, this man is speaking these things is such a beautiful thing that actually reminded me of the first time I cast the coins of the I Ching. And I had something that I had never told anyone. I was like harboring this thing, and I put it into those coins and I cast. And this little paragraph that came back from the I Ching just it made me recognize that I wasn't alone and that I couldn't hide anything from the universe. I didn't understand it. I couldn't explain it, but I knew that somehow these coins and this book and this ancient wisdom was actually looking into my soul, that I couldn't hide it from myself. I couldn't hide it from it. And it was a real cracking open and a transformation to really connect me back with trust in life, trust in myself, and trust in the divine. You know?
Wow, I love that. I love that full circle journey that you took us on there too. Just that beginning with your own journey with the I Ching and then connecting it in with, and I love, usually I start out the call by asking that question that you just answered for us, like, how do you come into the Gene Keys? Right. So I love that you wound it in or you wove it in so beautifully there. And as I was listening to that, it's funny actually, my brother's been into the I Ching since he was about 18 or 19, and his life's work is 50 and his evolution is 3. So there's something else again in that thread of similarity. These people, us drawn to these things, and it's by no accident. And you also mentioned that fourth gene key, and like, when I see that behind you, the bookshelf. It's like, yes, this is the house of a fourth gene key. I'm fourth gene key purpose as well, but I have a wife who's had me kind of trim down my the amount that I have. My dad had to have 2 homes for a while to house all his books. He carries the 63rd gene key, so he's that inquisitive. And so I am from a family of bookophiles. I totally get that. My grandfather came over from Poland, and he was coming over on a ferry to Poland, from Poland to, I think, England or maybe even Canada. And he had a choice. He could either bring his clothes or he could bring his books. So he bought some clothes when he got to Canada. Because he knew where it lay for him. So I love that. I love meeting other bookophiles, and I'm sure there's many watching this who just really resonate. And that fourth gene key I know pops up 3 times in your chart as well. So it's quite a meaningful one. Now, something that has brought us together in terms of our passions with this work has been gene keys and myth, and just the power of story and of myth to speak to us in these times, to support us in these times. And I'm wondering if there's anything that's alive for you in this reflection around myth that might serve people. And Richard's also somebody who's very passionate about myth. I think we know a lot of people within the Gene Keys community who are. And so how has myth played into this journey for you, and how do you continue to use it in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, beautiful question. Yeah, it's been such a pleasure to explore the realms of myth with you and with Dia and with the community. It's been really one of my favorite spaces of communion and really sharing. To me, myth is something that I think is so oddly received in our culture. And thank God for Joseph Campbell. I think he did a lot of bringing the power and the potency and the magic back to the Western perception of myth. Because oftentimes when we're growing up, you hear like, "Oh, that's just a myth." Like and it's said with this distaste, like you've got sand in your mouth or like ash in your mouth. Oh, that's just a myth, and there's some disrespect onto a child's fairy tale or some made up thing, when the actual truth is that myths are archetypal portals of consciousness that transcend learning, they transcend current culture. They're really these numinous gateways, doors of perception that really connect us to our spirit and to the divine. And so I really love combining, just thank God for Joseph Campbell and all that he did for that Western perception. But also the archetypes are really tied into that. For me, I was trained as a transpersonal psychologist in college, and Carl Jung, especially bringing forth the notions of the collective unconscious and these archetypes that aren't just figments of your own imagination. These are portals where the one consciousness is speaking and rising through us. And so to me, honoring that intentionally, invoking spirit and archetype and energy into a space in order to allow it to come alive, this is the power of myth. This is the thing that can awaken our dreams, that can take us out of the left brain logical, this is what's possible, and into, really getting in touch with the mystery and the magic of what it is to be alive, and what it is to be sentient, what it is to be individual on our own hero's journey, but also to know that we're all living the same meta myth. We are all part of this one organism, and we're each in different parts and pieces of this thing. This is the myth of Gaia, and the myth of humanity is that, we're all unique individual cells in a greater body. And even just that little myth, that little seed has so much potential to crack us out of our own individualized, specified life and into returning to the magic that really is available in life.
I love it. I'm so glad you went towards the archetypes there and that you spoke to that, just the respect for myth, because I completely agree. It's like, it seems like facts and myth are these two separate things when in fact there can be such a synergy there in the worldviews and helping to balance us out. So absolutely. And these drawing upon these archetypal, and one of the things that Jesse and myself and Dia, who I'll be interviewing next week, so we get to continue the myth next week, and the mythical thread is that the ways that the gene keys, they take on, like, they are archetypes. We have these 64 archetypes, and the playful way that we can begin to approach them and see them as these containers for universal wisdom, for universal themes that play out. And so I love that. Really, and it's one of the reasons, yeah, that we first connect. I think the first session we did was on dragons, and interestingly enough, dragons just came back to life this morning in my world in such a big way. And so no surprises there, because I know we've had many a conversation about the power of this, the symbology, the symbolism of the dragon, the myths of the dragon. Is there anything you want to say on the dragon right now? Maybe that's why I'm going there. I don't know.
I don't know. That's about all I have. But yeah, it's such a powerful symbol and such a beautiful beginning. I feel like it was the zero of our call, and it was really the egg and this primordial power that broke out of this egg, and it was a really auspicious beginning for Gene Keys and Myth. And but yeah, these archetypes, all of them, the dragon and the magician and the alchemist and the emperor, and we've gone on this real journey through these different archetypes, um, and I'm glad you brought it back to the gene keys that, and the I Ching, like these are 64 fundamental archetypes. These are spiritual energy frequencies. These are things that exist that sometimes activate and really become into expression, and sometimes they kind of fade, and they're sharing this whole wheel or this whole, everything. But these archetypes rise at different times in different ways, and they really express through every individual slightly differently. And at different times of the year, they're active or inactive, and different people, it triggers in their body and in their mind and their psyche, their life experience in different ways. And so it's so beautiful to really look at them as archetypes. And for me, one of the most beautiful things was, my own journey, like you mentioned, of going through and connecting the I Ching and this ancient tradition that, honestly, it must have been lifetimes that I've been studying it, because there's some part of me that it speaks to me in a way that it I don't know, it just feels resonant. And so I was wishing that there was more of that in the Gene Keys transmission. And so I said, oh, well, why don't you just try to create that a little bit, like connect some of the dots for yourself personally, and maybe others will enjoy it too. and it became a very fruitful journey. But it was a way of following the calendar and really going through all 64 archetypes. Because as beautiful as the chart is, it only has 11 spheres. And for me, I have three of those are four, and two of those are three. So five of the spheres of my chart out of my 11 are repeats, you know? And so for such a book nerd and someone that wants to consume all of the wisdom and all of this stuff, you know, it really led me to just say, okay, it's not just your chart. Learn your chart well, know thyself, but also know the cosmos and know the whole. But you can't just do it all at once. There is this journey, and this has been what has really become much of my path was you know, first learning and recording much of Richard's wisdom and the I Ching versions and human design, but then also then spending a period of time transmitting that and sticking to it and really writing from my heart and from my wisdom and from all of the wisdom of the giants that came before, but really trying to innovate a new and fresh, relatable experience in this moment has really led to a lot of the opportunities that I'm part of now that I'm really grateful for. And you know, hosting the weekly pulse calls every week for I think it's been, you know, we've done the whole wheel, so that's 52 weeks, and now we're back into the second cycle. And so I think we're nearing 64 of these rooms, and it's beautiful because there's, you know, other hosts that are super wise in different facets of the transmission. Ibby is an ambassador who's been in the transmission for a long time and really has the texture on embodiment and mysticism and really can bring through, talk about invoking some of these energies. They're just exquisite. And Katrini's an ambassador that's been there for a long time, and she has an extensive genius into the body graph and the calendar and so many other things. And then I bring my wisdom of the way that it comes through me. And so the trinity of hosts, I've learned so much just from the joy of being with them. But then each week, there's an opportunity for the community to raise their hand and to share, especially if it's like your purpose or your life's work or it's just alive for you. And hearing that archetype being spoken through the mouths of the many has been so enlightening to me. And I don't want to stop. You know, I want to hear the wisdom from others' mouths, and I want to share the wisdom as it comes through me. And so, um, yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, and you definitely do. And there's that the variety, the different ways it expresses. And one of the things I always experience, whether it's joining in the pulse or other ones, is when we contemplate this particular gene key in such a group and we're invoking this archetypal energy. It's like, even if you don't have this in your chart, pay attention the next few days because the themes are alive. You'll notice them. Life will just bring these things to us. And so, I highly recommend it. If you're watching this and you have not jumped on to Clubhouse, it is a great way for you to be able to kind of ease into the community. I think a lot of people find you don't have to be on camera, on Zoom kind of thing. You can be there. And you can share your voice if you want to, but you can simply listen. You can listen to the reflections. And there is such a vast array of experiences and wisdom and just insights coming through different people. So I totally relate to what you're saying there, Jesse. And I think what's so important with this is that it's one of the reasons I kind of put on this series where I'm interviewing guides. It's like, look at all these different flavors. Richard, 64 flavors of ice cream. Right? Is that what it is? I think it's a different number. Anyway, it's like you meet all these guides and they each have different life's work. They have different evolutions. And I loved also what you just said there. Like my twin brother and sister, they have the same chart, but it expresses very differently through them. And so I learned something through them. And I learned something through Jesse has the fourth gene key. So do I. I have it in a different position. I've learned about the wisdom of the fourth that way. And myself and Dia and Jesse come together in the Gene Keys of Myth. We all carry the 49 and the 4. So prepare for a whirlwind when you come into the Gene Keys and Myth. Like it's what drives us. We are here for this time of change, and I think that this brings it to a really natural conclusion here to our conversation as well. I've really appreciated diving deep and exploring with you, and um, just seeing what you have a passion for and where your wisdom lies, and just how you're doing so much within the community. And I know, like I've said it before and I'd say it again, we all really appreciate you, and we appreciate what you're doing for so many others as well. So thank you, a big thank you there. And I would love to ask, kind of closing question, and take as long with it as you need. If there's, for somebody who's maybe newer to the Gene Keys, what's some nugget of wisdom that you might give them in supporting them in approaching this obviously large volume of beautiful transmission?
Thank you. Yeah, well, there is a lot of depth. There's a lot of complexity, and there's a lot of avenues, rivulets. There's bubbling brooks and rivers and streams and oceans and all of those kind of things. There's deserts and mountains and lake, wind, wonder, thunder, fire, earth, and heaven. Um, so, there are these many complexities, and it can be vast and it can be a little daunting in times. But the beautiful thing about the I Ching and the Gene Keys is that there's also a really beautiful simplicity in it. And to me, that's one of the things that it may take a bit of guidance in order to find that simplicity. It can be very overwhelming, and it can be a lot to look at and to read. And so I love that the guides community is growing, and I think that there's a real offering there for guides to share their unique passions and to um, help with the shallow end, to help with people. Like, don't worry about all of the things and all of the complexities. Like, come into the transmission and try it on. Look past your mind and into your heart and into the wisdom of your body, and to that's very difficult and challenging to do, but it's so simple as well, you know. And when you taste it, you want more. But then oftentimes the mind comes back in, and it's challenging to stay there. And so having a community that gathers around this transmission, around the pause, around really bringing all of the intelligence down and unlocking the genius that naturally exists in our DNA and our psychology, really helps with a lot of that. And then, personal guidance sessions are great too. Most guides offer those, and they're as varied as there are guides. I have a certain way where I look deeply into the I Ching and the elements and the yin and yang lines. I look into sacred geometry. I look into transpersonal psychology. Some of those things that are part of the way that I see the wisdom represented in other people's charts. And then Matthew has a different way, and all of the others, it's like you said, the 64 flavors as well, and the 10,000 things. So I think that the guidance is really beautiful. But to me, if I had to extract one nugget that really is the fundamental to me and the most treasured aspect of this, is that it's all one thing. All 64 pieces and parts are all part of one crystal. There's all 64 facets of one larger structure. And so this is 64 star tetrahedrons, which, if you have an upper and lower trigram, they come together and they form a star tetrahedron. And then there's 64 of them in this piece. And so to me, this has become a model of how they really are woven from one thing. But so they're all 64 are really one expressions of the one divine consciousness, of the one, call it God, the divine, Gaia, goddess, like whatever your description is. For me, it's been consciousness. Consciousness is the infinite, unified, creative field of the cosmos. And I am one droplet of that consciousness. But I am not just that. That whole consciousness can run through me, but it also runs through you, and it runs through everyone else. And so we're all unified in that thing, but we're also separate and individuated. And so this is where like holographic theory and fractal theory comes in. This is a fractal holographic structure where any point on this grid could be the center of that grid, which allows me to be the center of my own experience, you to be the center of your own experience, everyone, but we're all made of the same things. And so these 64 fundamental frequencies of energy, these I Ching hexagrams, these gene keys, they're these individuated kind of separate elements that are in all of life. Every single person in every cell and every chain of DNA throughout the cosmos has all of the codons of DNA. It has all of the hexagrams of the I Ching. All of these things are alive in our body, in our psychology, and in the cosmos. But the beautiful thing is there's a roadmap that leads through this experience. And so one of my favorite parts of the Gene Keys is it's not afraid of the shadow. It's not afraid of the pain. It's not afraid of the less than, of the worst elements of ourselves that so much of our society and culture says, don't look at that. Don't pay attention to that. We can't go there. And Gene Keys says, actually, no, stop running, turn and approach this shadow because in every shadow, there is a hidden gift, and that this gift will naturally transform the energy. It won't take away the shadow, it won't take away the pain or the trauma, but it will actually transform it. So each one of these blueprints has a low frequency expression, a middle frequency expression, and a divine frequency expression. And so all of these potentialities live in every cell of every being. They live at the heart of every human. And there's a roadmap when things get rough and tough, how to recognize those shadows and how to love them and forgive them and transform them so that you can exert your gifts and your genius into the world. And to me, that is the most invaluable thing that weaves together shamanic traditions, psychological traditions, spiritual and mystical transmissions. And it really is a weaving together of the many complexities into one simple truth.
I love that. Yeah, the simplicity of it all. Absolutely. When we come to approach it, it can seem like a lot, but that returning to that simplicity. So I think that in alone in itself is can be a great reason to go and spend some time with somebody like Jesse. Now, of course, Jesse will also love to share all these other things. And so that's something I believe in your particular way of guiding people is that for those who might be open to those things even beyond that included within the gene keys, but like we've explored gene keys and myths and you've explored the I Ching to such depth. So this is something that people can explore in their one-on-one sessions with you as well as they can come and look at their profile, but it sounds like you can take them on a journey through something somewhere else too, some other cosmic wormhole.
Yeah, I've been, down in the deep ends for sure. I've been exploring the ancient caverns of the foundations of the wisdom. And that's where I discovered a lot of the insights about the calendar and the codon rings and the amino acids and how do the hexagrams code for DNA. Like there is a very clean and beautiful geometric coding of that, and it builds into the calendar. It's this perfect divine mathematics, and it forms this structure. This is a 4 by 4 by 4 cube that I call the hexagram hypercube. And so, yeah, I've I've gone into exploring many things of sacred geometry, of time space, of deep psychology, of shamanic kind of things, and that more mythological things, but also transpersonal psychology. And so, I have sessions that are quite a bit more standard, I would say, of like profile sessions and leading people through the activation sequence and through the Pearl sequence and through the Venus sequence. But also, I love to be an open book and to um, field questions, like open explorations into how does sacred geometry connect to this? Like, how does um, how does the calendar work and how does it code for DNA? And so some of the sessions I give are literally just explorations that people come. And so I love contemplating the mysteries, and I certainly don't have all the answers, but I certainly love all the questions.
I love that. And that's that fourth gene key. Live the question. Live the question. Awesome. And so you can find Jesse's website, which is keysoftheiching.com. And you'll find that below in the link here for the YouTube video and on Facebook where I'm posting it. And so if you want to explore this more, absolutely go there. Check out Jesse's work. I can highly recommend it. And I've learned so much from him along this journey and continue to. And there's a reason he's doing all the things that he's doing within the community, because he's a highly valued member of our community. As is everybody. He's got a very unique flavor with his third gene key and so much more in there as well. And Into the Mystic, we'll mention that again. That's really something that Jesse's obviously very excited for. The whole community is just brimming with excitement for this. The first physical embodied gathering in maybe, what was it, 5 years since before the pandemic and everything like that. So those you can get through the links down below as well. So lots of places to explore Gene Keys, either in person or online, on Clubhouse, whatever it might be. And you can find Jesse in almost all of those places. So you won't have trouble finding Jesse in the community. All right. So I want to thank you, Jesse. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for just the nuggets that you brought to this. And thank you for your passion and the work you do. I've said that a few times, but it bears repeating. And yeah, thank you. Just a big thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matthew. It's a really pleasure to be here, and thanks for inviting me on, and for being a co-host into so many beautiful explorations through myth and magic and gene keys. And yeah, one thing about the website, there's all sorts of there's like a Clubhouse page that has all of the replays really easy to find. So if you are interested in your life's work, or any of the gene keys, there's links to the Clubhouse replays right there. There's also another page for our Gene Keys and Myth, where all of our replays are easy to be found there, as well as there's the whole calendar of all my contemplations on all 64 keys of the I Ching, this bridge between the I Ching and the elements and the gene keys. So yeah, love
So
to explore.
it's a library like the one you're sitting in right now. It's like, that's when you go there, guys, it's going to look like that. There's going to be so many Clubhouse calls there. But yeah, that's a ton of resources. So thank you. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. So that's on the Keys of the I Ching website.
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Matthew. And such a pleasure to be here with you, and such a pleasure to be of service. So thanks so much.
Yes, awesome. I'm sure many people are now going to be on their way to meeting you in Boulder and Colorado and seeing you elsewhere on Clubhouse. So thank you, Jesse. Next week we have Dia Welland, who is another mystic on this path of the working with the gene keys, and brings in a deep and long and wise experience with a lot of wisdom from her work with the human design as well. And so she's somebody who's blending and working with both systems in a very harmonious way. And so she's been very helpful to both myself and Jesse, and we just love exploring gene keys and myth with her. So she will be up next week. So you got that to look forward to, folks, and we'll keep them coming. We'll continue exposing you to the community of Gene Keys guides and much more along the way. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.